Hello, I'm Chef Sawsan from the Ambrosia Inn in Beckley, West Virginia. Today, I'm going to celebrate Thanksgiving by being very thankful for one of my friends who grew these pumpkins for me. Today, pumpkin gratin is on the menu. The ingredients are So whether you have fresh pumpkins like I do, or you can use butternut squash if pumpkins are not available, we're still going to peel them and cube them. Then we're going to put them in water and let them cook on the stove. Place the pumpkin in a large pot and cover with cold water and cook on high heat until the pumpkins become very, very soft. While the pumpkins are cooking, melt half portion of the butter and saute your onions. Make sure this is on medium heat because we don't want the onions to brown anyway, we just want them translucent. While the pumpkin is cooking, I took the first portion of the butter, melted it, and placed the onions in it. You want to make sure this is cooked on medium heat because we want the onions just to get translucent, not to brown any. This might take from 7 to 8 minutes. After about 7 or 8 minutes, the onions will be a light brown, and we're going to let them sit and cool until we mash our pumpkin. The pumpkin has been cooking and boiling. You know that the pumpkin is done when you insert a knife into a piece and it will just very gently fall off. There's no resistance at all. Because it's a very watery mix, we need to strain them to make sure there's no excess moisture in our finished dish. I'm going to place it in a colander or a sieve. It's a beautiful color. You know, pumpkins are very underrated in the United States. They're only used for desserts. Internationally, pumpkins can be used for sweet or savory. So this is kind of a savory dish. And here we are. One more piece. Okay. We're going to drain the pumpkin. Make sure it's drained well, and then get it ready for mashing. I'm going to need my potato masher. Now that the pumpkins have been drained well, and while they're still warm, just so it's easier to mash, I'm going to use my potato masher and give it a nice mashing. This is one of my favorite parts. And while it's still warm, again, we're going to add the cheese, the cheddar cheese, and the cream. And mix it up nicely. It's a beautiful color. And we're going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. And this is totally to your taste. You don't want to add too much salt because it will lessen from the sweetness. And remember, you have cheese in there. The cheese is salty. Okay. Now you can mash this as much as you like, but I like a little lumps. But if you don't like lumps, you can mash them up even in a food processor. After we've incorporated all the cream and cheese into the pumpkin, I'm going to take those onions that we sauteed earlier and put them in and mix them. And now we're ready to put it in our dish. I have the casserole dish right here, and I'm just going to butter it. I like to use my paper from the butter that I had earlier. It has just enough butter so that you don't over grease the pan. We're going to place it in the dish. And then make our topping. We're going to make the topping for the casserole. First thing we have is we've melted our remaining 2 ounces of butter. You can do that in the microwave. Added the breadcrumbs, the walnuts, and the Parmesan cheese. Now, I don't like to add a lot of salt to this because Parmesan cheese is kind of salty, but I will grind in some pepper. And with a fork, you want to mix it up together, and that'll keep it fluffy instead of having it clumped. Then when you've coated all the breadcrumbs with as much of the butter as possible, we'll put it on the casserole. Now this casserole can be made ahead of time. You can refrigerate it and just heat it up the next day or even a couple of days later. Just make sure to allow time when it comes out of the refrigerator in the oven, extra time, because it will be cold. There we are. And you'll put that in a 350 oven for about 35 minutes or so until it starts to bubble on all sides. So about 35 minutes or so later, when this is bubbling, it looks nice and brown on the outside and it's beautifully heated through. And this will complement any dish, not just at Thanksgiving, but any time of year. Enjoy.